Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, Mark Schindler is in the building. There's no way that only I could break down everything that happened tonight. I had to rope in Mark to talk about a holy shit night of NBA basketball. I don't remember the last night that gave us this much crazy shit that happened. Can you remember a night like this, Mark?
Not with 4 games like this, or I should say 3 games. Grizzlies, Lakers, not so much, but
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, NFL draft, I guess. Yes and no. Yeah. No, it was crazy tonight.
It was absolutely insane. It was a blast to watch. We got an epic Milwaukee Bucks pants shitting. I think that's the only way to describe that, right, Mark?
Yes, very much. What were they up? I mean, they were top
16 going into the fourth quarter. It was 102 to 86. And then they completely lose the plot at the first, I think, 5 minutes of that fourth quarter. They have a Giannis and Middleton lineup against a no Jimmy Butler lineup, and the Heat bring it back to 6. That's where they lost the game, in my opinion. We'll talk about that. Then we're going to jump into the Knicks moving into the second round. Then we're going to jump into, I guess, probably the Lakers game very briefly. We're going to talk a little bit about how Desmond Bane's off-ball movement was absolutely terrific in that game. And then we're going to talk about the Kings and the Warriors and really a tremendous game that I think nobody is going to remember because it happened during this insane Milwaukee Bucks collapse. NBA, please get your shit together. Don't run games simultaneously like this again, please. Mark, I will just give you the floor. What is your overarching response to what just happened?
From which game? From Bucks Heat, I'm assuming you want to start?
From all of it? I don't know where all of it.
Yeah, Bucks Heat. I think I was confident in the Bucks as much as I felt I could be in some of the East teams this year. Not that, and that's less to say that I didn't think that that I don't think that the East teams are good, but I think to me what really defined the series is that there weren't really dominant teams. Like I think that there were some really good teams, like the Bucks were one of them, but even with the Celtics, the way that their armor kind of had some weak spots as we saw as the year went on. Philadelphia has obviously had very notable things throughout the year. You can say the same stuff about the Western contenders, and I think that reared its head in this round. Like as good as Milwaukee's defense has been all year, I think that their real lack on the wings in players who are quick enough and athletic enough to stay in front of anybody was a real problem for them in this series. They didn't have an answer for Jimmy Butler, so I think that stood out a ton. And we'll talk more about the Heat, in a minute. But that's my big takeaway on the Bucks is just what their overall roster construction issues are right now. You go to the Cavs, and I think it's similar, but I'm just not as low on the Cavs as I think a lot have come away from this. Like, I don't like this is I personally thought that this was a series that was going to go 7, but I think that speaks more to how close I felt the teams were, and that ended up not being the case. Just based on I still think I thought Donovan still had a really good series, and Darius and stretches as well, but this came down to how rough that offense can be without having a real fifth player who can function on both sides of the ball. As much as Isaac Okoro tried tonight, that just the way that they get guarded in the half court, it's unfeasible. Jared Allen was practically not there at times in the playoffs, it felt like. And I think as much as you and I both love Evan Mobley, I do think this series really showed some of where he really needs to continue growing as an offensive player. But I also want to say too, he's a second-year NBA player. He really did get a lot better this year. So I think it's important to not just, go all the way against the grain on that. And we'll talk, more about the Knicks in a second.
Let's start there. Let's start with the East. So let's go to the Bucks first, because holy shit, first and foremost. Second, I've had some questions about Mike Budenholzer throughout the course of this playoff series. I have wondered why they haven't thrown more two at the ball scenarios onto Jimmy Butler to try and get the ball out of his hands when he was getting hot. I thought that when Giannis got back, we would probably see a little bit more of Giannis on Jimmy Butler, and that hadn't really occurred until game 5, and didn't really occur a ton in game 5 either, just a little bit. They tried to get Giannis switched on to Jimmy, it felt like, a little bit more often. But I can't remember a game that I felt like was worse coached. And I watched all of the Cavs Knicks series where JB Bickerstaff got fully pantsed by Tom Thibodeau. From the 3.5 minute mark onward, when Mike Budenholzer burns his challenge on a Giannis charge call and loses because it didn't even really seem like a credible challenge call, until the end of it, where everything happens from using Giannis to guard the inbounds pass to, instead of guarding the rim, and taking Brook Lopez off the court. So you have no rim protection for when Jimmy is going to try and have this little tip in, right? You have to know that the shot around the basket is a real potential outcome. You have to have one of those two guys at the basket, in my opinion. To the jump ball that had occurred after the terrible Kyle Lowry call. You know that Giannis is struggling at the foul line. Why in the world is he on the court for that jump ball? And it almost ends in disaster because he gets the ball and then plays hot potato with it because he doesn't want to get fouled, and throws it out, and it requires like a Chris Middleton save in order to get it back to Drew Holiday. To not calling a timeout at the end of regulation. It feels like they had a timeout. The Chiron at the bottom said they had a timeout. You go back through the play-by-play data, it said they'd only used one timeout in the final 2 minutes. So I believe they had a timeout in that moment. All the data says they had a timeout in that moment. Doesn't use it. They heave up like a 70-footer instead of moving the ball past half court. To then the final play, and let's maybe jump into some tape here. The final play here is a Gabe Vincent missed 3-pointer. Giannis gets the rebound. How do you feel about Giannis grabbing and going here without calling a timeout?
I think that's fine. I mean, like, that multiple time MVP, arguably the best player in the NBA. I'm cool with that. I trust him to make the right decision and to make a play.
I agree with you. I'm totally on board with that. I think that you're letting Giannis grab and go. He's the best transition player in the NBA. You're absolutely in good hands here. So Giannis goes, Jimmy is here. What I think is important to note here, look at Jimmy's anticipation. He knows the direction that Giannis is going to try and go. He knows he's going to try and go away from the multiple bodies that are currently in the middle of the court. And he just steps up to the right and completely bodies him up. That is an enormous play from Jimmy Butler to set this entire calamity up from the Milwaukee Bucks here. So then Giannis has to throw the ball out. To me, once Giannis falls on the ground, I'm probably calling a timeout there at 5 seconds. You do have a one-on-one here with Chris Middleton. But again, Chris doesn't take the mid-range shot, gets bottled up here. I'm again calling a timeout here if I'm Mike Budenholzer. I believe they have 2 of them left at this point. And then it goes to Grayson Allen, and Grayson Allen needs to probably relocate and shoot there right off the 3-point line. He's shoot here and needs to shoot here. There are just so many different places where Allen needs to do something, and he makes a really poor decision to drive all the way in, and he doesn't get a shot off. What is going through your mind as you watch this last play again? It blows my mind that we ended up in a place where they didn't even get a shot off.
Well, I thought it was just kind of jarring, the saying, I mean, because, like, obviously, guys are filling lanes or whatever, but it felt like there was just kind of a lack of urgency overall from everybody on the court except for Giannis, coming off that board, which was kind of wild. to witness and to see. And I agree too. Like exactly. Like I think if I could rewrite this and how I'm doing it, like I'm calling it that, like I would call a timeout, say, okay, let's get Brook Lopez back out there. Bam's fouled out, Kevin Love is fouled out. How are they defending that? Even if it's just a dummy action, you open up something easy. So yeah, it is very jarring to look back at this, especially too, because like this is not to slight Miami, but it's not even like the stuff that they were doing process wise was awesome. Like I thought a lot of this was Jimmy heavy lifting. And
Yeah.
like on top of like I thought their ATOs and out of bounds plays overall were really good, but in terms of just what they were running in the flow, it never really felt like anything special.
We'll talk about that in a minute here. I do think their end of game offense was really, really good to get Jimmy those open looks.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like for the first 40 minutes of this game, I agree with you entirely. And it just completely eludes me. I mean, are we really at the point now where we might have to like have a conversation about firing Mike Budenholzer after this?
I'm not there. I think a lot of fans will be. But to me, this just comes down a lot more to what the roster is. Like, I know it's easy to point at, and this is not me, trying to be unfair to you, but I think like because I see where you're coming from totally, but also I think they're not in this position if the roster's better. Like they shouldn't be in this position. And I think like part of it, yes, Giannis getting hurt had an impact. But I do think this speaks at large to what the roster is rather than how Mike coached the series, even if I agree that he didn't coach well.
So my problem is I think you have to do something now.
Yeah.
And like you have to make a change in some way. Chris Middleton has, I believe, something like a $43 million player option. I'll pull that up as I'm talking, but something like a $43 million player option. He might just opt into that. Like after the way he played this playoff run and up until today, at the very least, and throughout the latter portion of the season, he was pretty good. He wasn't quite a $43 million player. I would imagine that there's a real chance he opts into that or opts out and goes for like a longer extension with Milwaukee. But if you're Milwaukee, do you want to sign Chris Middleton to a longer extension? Like if he does 3 years, 95 million, are you comfortable with that, Mark?
I don't know. Something I need to think through because like you mentioned, I think he was okay defensively today, but his defense, I mean, he was okay offensively today, but his defense just as a whole, the series was rough. And I think
quite poor
when you're looking at, what that drop off has been this season compared to, is he getting back to the same level offensively that he was a year or two ago? That has me questioning it quite a bit. Because I think even when you were looking at when he was a borderline all defense guy, on top of being, a guy who's giving you like 20 to 23 a game on really good efficiency with some secondary playmaking, like I think even then I'm like, is that somebody I want to pay $30 to $40 million a year or give a max contract to? Like, I think I would lean yes on that. But again, like we're still talking about like, okay, well, this guy's probably 15 to 20, somewhere between 15 and 25 right now. Like that, this version of Chris Middleton's like a top 50 player. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to figure out there. And on top of that too, Brook Lopez is a free agent after next season. So, but to me, Brook's been their second best player all year, like without question. But he's 34. So
and for what it's worth, Brook Lopez is a free agent this season, not next season.
That's this season. Shit. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they have a real decision to make here in terms of, do you trust 35-year-old Brook Lopez, who is enormous, to continue to age this well and continue to hold up? Because as soon as Brook's defense drops off as a rim protector a little bit, it's going to go. Like, yeah, his value is really, really going to drop. But do you trust him to be able to have like a Marc Gasol kind of value long-term? He's not quite the passer and processor and playmaker that Marc Gasol was able to be later in his career. That's just not who Brook is. And Brook, I thought, kept them in the game in the second quarter with incredible shot making. He made a three from the right wing. He had those 2 Dirk fadeaways in the middle of the paint that were huge. He had 10 points in that second quarter. But I don't know, man. I think it's hard. Zawad Khan in the YouTube comments here asks, if you're the Bucks front office, where do you go here roster construction wise? They're old as shit. And if Middleton picks his option up, no cap flexibility for the foreseeable future. If you look at what their cap flexibility is, let's say Middleton picks up the option. It's for $41 million. You have Giannis, you have Drew Holiday, you have Bobby Portis, you have Pat Connaughton under contract for all of that time. That doesn't quite cap you out. You're in a place where if you decide not to retain Brook Lopez, you could actually get some flexibility after next season. But I don't think that you can really get rid of Brook Lopez at this point. Like, if you lose Brook Lopez for nothing, you're taking an enormous step back next season. There's just not another way around that. So you can't lose him for nothing, which means you have to actually bring in a salary slot. I think they just kind of have to run it back, right? That feels like what you have to do roster wise.
I think yes and no. I think I would say yes to Brook. Like, maybe you're looking at more of a midterm deal, but also I think that's hard to sell to somebody who is 34. Like, I think Brook does have a chance to have another pretty significant payday. Not like I think he's making a max, but I think, like, with how well he's played now, like, I think that there will be a team or two that would be willing to offer him pretty big money. So I'm interested to see what that looks like. But I think I'm at the stage of, like, do we try and trade Chris Middleton and stuff to get different looks? Because I think that that's kind of where I'd be at here. Again, I'd need to, reassess stuff with medical staff and try and really parse through what those options actually are. But it's not great.
So here's the other real question. As Miles Johnson brings up here in the YouTube comments, can we speak about Drew having a 49 true shooting percentage in the playoffs since he got traded to Milwaukee? Drew is a great defensive player. Drew is also a guy that has really struggled in the playoffs since he's been in Milwaukee. Even during their run, it was very hot or cold. It was very hot or cold when they won the title with Drew.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. But also I think it kind of goes hand in hand a little bit. Like, they don't win the title without him having the one or two hot nights. And I think that's kind of what you knew that trading for him, what he was like. I think he's always kind of had that streakiness, which is part of what's held him back from being a consistent all-star, all-NBA guy. And I think, again, like when we're talking about how they play defensively, and his offense is that much more important because of how lacking their offense had been so much of this season. So I think, there were some loud, not great moments in the playoffs, but I think part of that is just where he is in the hierarchy and how they are kind of set up right now.
Yeah. It's interesting because I felt like the fourth quarter. So we need to mention this as well. We mentioned it at the top, but the Milwaukee Bucks blew a 16-point lead going into the fourth quarter here. I don't think we've mentioned that enough here in this conversation. It was a disaster. And I felt like it was a disaster because Drew was not on the floor, frankly, for that time. And Giannis went full Giannis and tried to freight train over everybody. And it's really hard to do that against Miami because they have a bunch of strong dudes that can just throw their body in front of the play. It's hard because if you want to make real changes, if Middleton opts in, but it's hard because does Chris Middleton opt out if you're threatening to move him, or if because that's a guy that you really should be having a real conversation with, right? You don't just move that guy. He was the second best player or third best player on a title team for you, right? Mm-hmm. And he has real organizational, value to you. He's been around forever. He's a legend of your entire organization long term. He's going to get his jersey retired in Milwaukee. you can't let that guy opt in and then trade him. That's like a fucking disaster look for the organization, I think, which to me then brings up Drew. But again, if you're going to then re-sign Brook and play your drop coverage scheme, you actually need Drew to be the best, chaser of guards over screens and be the best on-ball defensive guard in the NBA. Like you need to retain him then, which is why, again, I'm just like, do you run this back with a different coach and see what happens? And I don't know if there's a great answer here for Milwaukee. That's the problem. Like I look into moving Chris Middleton while having like a very open conversation with him saying like, look, you're on $40 million next year. You're not going to get $40 million on the open market. We're happy to move you elsewhere. But we do, if, we would like to let you opt into that deal and get your payday and move you elsewhere. And then you can be a free agent and try and get your money else. Like if you don't like it for a year, you can be a free agent. I feel like that's an interesting strategy for them. I think exploring a Drew Holiday trade is an interesting strategy for them. I think you have to retain Brook. I think that is a place where I do come down on it. You have to retain Brook Lopez for at least next season. But the other part of this that gets really interesting, Mark, is the new collective bargaining agreement. Because in the new collective bargaining agreement, if you re-sign Brook, you're definitely flying over the apron, the second tax apron, right? And if you do that, you are then substantially limited in terms of your trade flexibility. So some of the rumors that have come out about the new CBA is that if you're over that second apron, you can't aggregate players in trades. If you're over that second apron, you can't take on more money in trades than you send out. So you're then basically locked into this roster again for another year. And that feels problematic to me. This isn't a situation with easy answers. I think the answer is you probably just have to run it back and pray. You're also not going to have a mid-level exception this offseason if you re-sign Brook, because you don't get the mini mid-level anymore if you're over that second apron. So you probably get worse this offseason. This is a very hard situation for Milwaukee.
Well, yeah, and I think the biggest thing to me too is like you can't afford to take a step back next year. Like this, Giannis is a free agent in 2025.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're in a weird spot.
Yeah. The last point here for Milwaukee I want to bring up before we get into Jimmy is Giannis. I thought Giannis was a problem for them in the first part of this fourth quarter. I thought he just went, like I said, freight train mode and tried to draw fouls and tried to not really run all that efficient offense. They kind of broke the scheme, it felt like, in that quarter. And then late in the game, it was clear he didn't want to go to the foul line. Like he went, what was it? I know at one point he was like 10 of 21.
15 of 23 tonight or something like that. It was less than that. I'm trying to.
Yeah. He was 10 of 23 from the foul line tonight. So, I think we need to like have a real conversation about Giannis's foul shooting. This is a real problem for Giannis moving forward. And this is a real thing he needs to improve. This is now threatening his status as being the best player in the world. And I think there's a real case that if like Kevin Durant leads the Suns to the title, I think that Kevin Durant has a very real case as being the best player in the world again. If X, Y, and Z, this is now an open discussion in a pretty real way. Joel Embiid leads the Sixers to a title. Real case as best player in the world. Giannis had the title, I felt like, for about a year and a half now. Ever since they won the title, maybe 2 years. I don't know if he has the title if he doesn't improve as a foul shooter, even though he played this injury or played this series with a back injury. And I think that's important to know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's something I need to think more about on. Like, I don't think I have a concrete take right now. Like it definitely was not his best series, but yeah, it was, that's one I need to parse through more in my head again.
So let's go to how Miami came back here. Is there anything that stands out to you from the first little run there in the fourth quarter about how Miami was able to come back while I tweet out a link?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what goes into you know right in with the Bucks' inability to really have athletic wings who can hold up in space and who can guard one-on-one while also being good in team principles, was how the Heat used Jimmy. Like, I thought it was like watching them use a knight in chess. Like, they kept finding different ways to utilize him. They used him as a screener. They ran him off of screens. They had him run in isolation. They had him bring the ball up. And I thought I loved how aggressive they were in trying to push everything in transition. Even if it
Yep.
wasn't to score right away, like, I thought they did a good job of drawing some cross matches early just because they got more bodies across center court
Yep.
before the Bucks did. And that was something that was really frustrating to see from the Bucks tonight. Like, I thought just their lack of urgency overall was problematic. So yeah, I think that's what stood out to me.
So let's kind of jump in here. A lot of what they did involve using Bam as basically a point guard. And what that does is it brings Brook Lopez just that little bit away from the rim, not crazy away from the rim. Brook is standing in that 12 to 14 foot range, but he's not directly at the basket when you use Bam as essentially the point forward, bringing the ball up the court. So here you're going to see Bam bring the ball up the court. He's going to throw the ball to Jimmy Butler on the wing. And then you're going to see just a killer screen here from Bam to free Jimmy from Drew Holiday. And this is really the only on ball play that Jimmy made during this run. Most of it was crazy off ball movement, but I think that Bam deserves quite a bit of credit. I had someone in my mentions ask me, like, do the Heat look to move on from Bam if they blow this? And I was like, absolutely not. Bam had like I know he had a triple double tonight. What was it? It was like 20, 10 and 10, right?
Yeah, I
It was
think
unbelievable. He was incredible tonight.
To be fair, I mean, he has had an awful offensive series, but yeah, like the trade, hell no. He was awesome tonight.
Yeah. So again, we're going to get Bam bringing the ball up the court here. And this is just that slick little baseline play, this quick hitter that Eric Spoelstra queued up, where you're going to see, I believe it's Max Strus just kind of sneak behind Drew Holiday here and just get behind him and create that open lane baseline. It's almost like a reverse hammer play, kind of, where you're just sneaking him right in front of Drew Holiday. He's going to clip him. Jimmy Butler is going to be able to get right to the rim. It's just a super sharp, quick hitter. I think that Drew, if you look on the look here, Drew is trying to overplay, thinking that Jimmy, you can't really see Drew, I guess. He's that little headband kind of right next to Jimmy's head. He's overplaying him toward the top side, thinking that Jimmy is going to come up to the wing and just go get the ball. Instead, Spoelstra cues it up. Perfect play call. Jimmy Butler lay in. This play here again, Bam Adebayo, essentially acting as your initiator on the offense here. Look how far out of the paint Brook Lopez is on this play. And you're just going to see they run just this little rub action for Jimmy to come off and curl, noticing that Brook Lopez is all the way out of the paint. And this is a wide open paint for Jimmy Butler to drive into. Again, really sharp, really smart use of Bam Adebayo as your point guard there to initiate the actions to pull Brook Lopez away from the rim. And again, you're going to see it. Brook Lopez away from the basket. And you're just going to see just a quick little pick and roll. They switch the action. Brook fouls him. Jimmy starts screaming. It's simple. Like, this entire series has been based on Jimmy Butler being this incredible off-ball or on-ball threat, dominating and shooting over the top of Drew Holiday and being a maestro in ball screens. The versatility with which they used him throughout the course of this series, I think, was just masterful by Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah, no, 100%. Watching them come back like this was a blast. Like, I mean, totally unexpected, but a major blast. And for Jimmy to do this, like, what was he, 56 2 nights ago, and 42 tonight? I don't even know what to say about that. Like, obviously, he's been a fantastic playoff player, but this series is like his crowning moment, as far as I'm concerned.
I think so.
Like, I don't know how else you can look at it. Like, again, I want to reiterate, I don't think that this is like a juggernaut number one seed, but I picked them. I think pretty much everybody picked
Yeah.
them. This Heat team looked like an 8 seed most of the year. It never really felt like they were in that upper crust home court kind of team. And for Jimmy to do this this isn't just like they flipped the switch type thing. This has been a lot of Jimmy's heavy lifting and them being pretty locked in defensively while the Bucks struggling too.
Yeah. And this is also the same Miami team that lost at home to the Atlanta Hawks in the play-in game.
And bludgeoned.
That happened a week ago.
Not like a close game. Like, what did they lose by, like 20?
No, it's terrible. It's a terrible basketball game. So here you're going to see Kevin Love just set like a really good little pin down screen. And Drew is just a little bit late arriving. And Jimmy rises up for the three. Super simple. And then he took 10 threes, Jimmy Butler. How about that? And then this is the final play of regulation. And again, I have no idea why you either don't have Brook Lopez on with Giannis or you have Giannis at the basket with somebody else guarding the inbounds pass. That is, to me, just like unforgivable to not have a real rim protector at the basket in this circumstance. Jimmy Butler is going to come around. Max Strus basically shoves Drew Holiday out of the way here, essentially. Very, very aggressive shove by Max Strus. And then just the athleticism on Jimmy Butler here. This is like an Odell Beckham Jr. level catch and finish. I can't believe I was just sitting here. I can't believe what I just saw when Jimmy finished that.
Yeah, I just started laughing. It was pretty nutty, man.
Yeah, just the way that they use Jimmy Butler. Again, that is an off-ball play. The easy play here for Miami would have been to go for the win, to bring Jimmy out off of a pin down at the foul line, get him the ball at the three-point line, let him take one dribble and try and shoot over the top to try and get like a 20% look to try and win this game. Instead, they use Jimmy Butler's off-ball movement here to try and get this easy to try and get what should have been an easy tie, but it wasn't really an easy tie. Jimmy Butler was a superhero who just caught a Herculean pass and finish, basically. But unbelievable. Now we get Miami against the Knicks, and maybe that is where we transition to the Knicks, but we're going to take a very quick commercial break before we do that. Okay. So you kind of mentioned what your overarching impressions of the Knicks Cavs series were at the top, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought there were two things that stood out to me in that series. First, I thought JB Bickerstaff was a mess in that series. I thought he was absolutely terrible. It took him way too long to figure out to try and get Darius Garland the ball. As I mentioned on the previous show, last night or 2 nights ago, I guess that I did. The Knicks made it fairly easy for the Cavs to try and take advantage of Jalen Brunson in on-ball actions, and the Cavs just didn't do it often enough. And you can say that, they could have pre-switched Jalen Brunson. They could have done this. They could have done that. No, they were just flat out guarding Darius Garland with Jalen Brunson for large portions of that series. That was a disaster. The second thing is just, I hated the fact that they did not really seem to make too many they made defensive adjustments. I just felt that they were the wrong defensive adjustments. I referenced in the last podcast that I did on the Knicks that they were way over helping with Jared Allen to the strong side where the ball was when Jalen Brunson had it. And then tonight they went completely away from that, as we'll talk about. And it felt like to me, Jared Allen just was lost at that point. He had no idea where he was supposed to be. He had no idea what he was supposed to do. And that was, to me, because they tried to overcompensate for something they didn't need to compensate for. And you just got in Jared Allen's head a little bit, and you made it so that he wasn't thinking reactively. He was thinking too much, and everything he did, it seemed, was just that step late. Like he was thinking, what am I supposed to do here? Am I supposed to be here? Am I supposed to be there? That's just my like read on it from seeing it from afar. It looked pretty bad. Jared Allen got drastically outplayed in this series. A former all-star center got absolutely obliterated by Mitch Robinson in this series. And I thought that was on JB Bickerstaff. And the second thing was that Jared Allen just got absolutely obliterated by Mitch Robinson. And I think this is the series that was Mitchell Robinson's like true arrival on the stage of being, frankly, like he is a real case, I think, is a top 10 center in the league right now, based off of what he just did in this series. Mark, what are your overall thoughts on Mitchell Robinson in this series?
Love Mitch Rob. I think he averaged more offensive boards than defensive boards in this series, if I remember correctly. Especially after tonight, it's hard not to. I mean, I was really impressed with him. I thought part of what made him fun, it's not the same level of off-ball movement as what Jimmy did, but I thought his ability to attack open gaps was really impressive to me, especially considering that he's somebody who, I mean, he's always got to create his own offense. It's not like he's not somebody who's ever going to, like, I mean, obviously, you know, when he's in pick and roll or running out in transition, he's getting his bucket served to him. He's not somebody who's going to get post-ups, even if he has a mismatch. He has to be incredibly aggressive in that, you know, 8 to 10 feet, you know, away from the rim, inside the restricted area, in finding ways to cut and be aggressive and attack the glass. And I thought he was just dominant in this series. Part of that was obviously on how the Cavs were playing defensively and what their situation was on the glass and who their three was most of the time. I thought was a really big issue for them. I think, you know, a lot has been made out of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen and lack of physicality. And I think there is some truth to that, but a lot of it does come back to just their lack of consistency from anyone at the three spot. You tweeted about this. I really would have liked to see, did we even see Dean Wade at all in this series?
We saw him briefly in game one, and then we saw him in garbage time later in the series.
Yeah, like I know that he dealt with injury, you know, for a decent portion of the second half of the season. I know that contributed to him, but like it was just really weird seeing like Danny Green barely got run after they acquired him, and then he ends up starting a game in this series and playing quite a bit. You know, like I thought, like honestly, I would have gone to Lamar Stevens a lot earlier than they did. I think legitimately, and this is no slight to Isaac Okoro, who's something we'll have to talk about more in depth at a later date, because I think that's just an interesting thing to look at. But like, even if Isaac has some better ball skills and brings a little bit of a different look, I think for me with Lamar, like he at least plays more like a forward for me. Like I think he brings a lot of the same defensive stuff while not being, you know, the same in being able to navigate screens and shit. But like he's a lot more confident taking shots. I have a lot more faith in him just finding ways to find his own offense too, even if I still think he's overall going to be a negative on the offensive end. I think I would have just been more confident in playing him in this series. Obviously, you know, JB Bickerstaff did not feel the same, but it was just weird. It never really felt like they got something solid. I think, you know, Chetty was probably their best option off the bench. And even then, I didn't really think that he was that awesome.
Yeah, no, I will say they at least like guarded Chetty a little bit more. It felt like there was a rotation at the end of the third quarter that I grabbed, and it was like, okay, like they actually rotated out to him at the 3-point line, and they left Evan Mobley wide open at the rim, and Mobley just didn't get the shot off in time. It felt like they cared that he was a shooter out there in a way that they absolutely did not give a shit about Isaac Okoro when he was out there, which I broke down on a recent episode. And I felt like with Karis LeVert, I guess they guarded him, but like they were more than comfortable to stick Jalen Brunson on all of these guys. And that made things a little bit easier when the bench guys came in, especially Chetty, especially Okoro, the occasional minutes with Lamar Stevens. They got some real blows for Jalen Brunson, not having to guard Darius Garland, not having to be put through the screens. I will say this, though, I know that a lot of people are like, well, Donovan Mitchell was absolutely terrible in this series. I think a reason that he was terrible was because there was always an extra man in the paint.
Yeah.
Like a big part of,
I wouldn't say he was terrible. I thought he was fine.
yeah.
Like obviously you wanted more. I don't think it was like the patented Donovan Mitchell playoff series, but given confines, I thought, it was about what you could ask.
Yeah.
And I do just
especially when accounting for the fact that both of their bigs can't shoot. Like it's the combination of both of the bigs not being able to shoot, as well as not having a three that can shoot.
Yeah. And I think what makes this interesting to me too, like I again, like I think you and I are good about not doing this and having giant sweeping takeaways from a playoff series. To me, this isn't being out on the two big lineup or being out on the two guards. I think like I do actually think there is more to think about in terms of talking about the two bigs. I'm not there yet with being done with it, but their defense was not a problem for me at all in this series. I think the defense was still the energy, yes, and I think that goes on to coaching,
Yeah.
and on the players too. Like not to just put it all on a coach, but like I don't think that I look at this and go, oh, well, them having two small guards in the backcourt totally sank them in the playoffs.
I definitely agree with you there. I do not think that was a problem for them in this series.
That wasn't a problem all year, and I don't think that was the problem in the playoffs at all. So I have seen that a bunch, and I just don't agree with that.
So I will say this about the two big structure. I don't think it was a problem defensively. I do think it is a problem offensively to have two big non-shooters in there.
Yeah.
And part of this is where Evan Mobley is in his development. He is still very young, and we're assuming there's going to be some growth there long-term, probably as a shooter. You would hope at the very least. He won't reach his ceiling if there isn't growth there as a shooter in the way that somebody like Anthony Davis, for instance, got to the point where he was like a pretty passable shooter there and a good one for a while, even though he's kind of reverted back. He at least needs to be comfortable taking those shots from 16 to 18 feet, and he's just not there right now. The problem there, though, is I do wonder about timelines matching up for them, because we are at the point now where like Donovan Mitchell, the clock isn't like ticking on his contract, but Donovan Mitchell is a free agent in 2 years, and they at least need to show some growth next year. And that probably has to be from Evan Mobley, in my opinion. I think they have to run this back, because part of the two timelines issue, though, is that Evan Mobley is not ready to play center yet. We saw that tonight. Like, we're going to do some Mitchell Robinson clips here in a minute. He's not ready to play center. He will get bullied and will get out physicaled. And like, you can't do that and win a playoff series with him at the center position right now.
Yeah. My biggest issue with him is the strength on the offensive end rather than the defensive end. I think the functional strength defensively was so much better for me this year, but offensively, not really. Like he gets knocked off of his base anytime. Like, part of what really, I think like the wings certainly hurt them in the playoffs, but I thought what hurt them the most was teams were comfortable just saying, okay, well, we will play, like we're just going to play you on the short roll. We're going to say, okay, you either have to make a decision or attack. And they were comfortable getting into Evan, knocking off his spots, and like his touch is really rough if he gets knocked off of his base.
Yep.
So I thought that really hurt them a lot and what that could be, because it's great and all if you can make these reads, but when a team isn't selling out to allow you to make the reads, then what happens? And I think you saw a lot of that in this series. So yeah, like continuing to develop out the face-up game and getting into his touch game in general and having more functional strength, attacking off the dribble will be really big.
I think Marcus Driscoll brings up a totally reasonable point. I think Jaren was even stronger than Evan is right now, to be honest, but he looks very similar to Jaren Jackson in year two. I think that they're a little bit different. I think Evan's a little bit better on the glass than Jaren was when he was younger, despite that strength differential. I think Jaren was a bit more developed as a shooter, obviously, but purely from a strength perspective, he is not ready to play the five yet. Jaren, we're in year 5 of Jaren, right, Mark?
Yeah, I think
And
so.
he just now, I think, is strong enough to play the 5 and like really hold up in those tough matchups like Anthony Davis. Like he's managing reasonably well against Anthony Davis, I think, at times in this series against the Lakers. But Evan's not there yet. And I think that was a big problem. I saw that Swaggy D in the YouTube comments say they got out toughed. I do kind of agree with that. Like the physicality was an issue for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the biggest reason for that was Mitchell Robinson. So let's maybe jump into the tape here and talk about Mitchell Robinson. I just loved everything that Mitchell Robinson did in this series. You're going to see here, this is just Mitch coming over from the weak side. I thought in the first quarter, he did such a great job of setting the tone with physicality and with rim protection. So here you're going to see him just peel off of Jarrett Allen, weak side block, awesome block, sets the tone to run the transition play down the court the next possession. Here you're going to see Darius Garland drive. He comes up, he does contest the Darius Garland, and then it's the second jump here that is so impressive from Mitchell Robinson. He's able to get back to Jarrett Allen, and Jarrett Allen takes this bullshit little floater thing, and Mitch just absolutely swats the shit out of him. I mean, again, like he just made Jarrett Allen like look small at times in this series. He did from a physicality perspective, from a length perspective. Jarrett Allen, I think, has longer arms, but it certainly didn't seem like it throughout the course of the series. And for what it's worth, again, I don't think it was like a only toughness thing with Jarrett Allen. I think it was he didn't really know where to go at the end of this series because it felt like they were trying to change what his responsibilities were a lot of the time. And it just didn't really work. Here you're going to see just a terrific defensive possession in space for Mitchell Robinson. Look at him sliding his feet. He's active. He's mobile. He's going to come back. The screen gets flipped. He's cutting off Darius Garland, cutting off every single possible angle. And then here you're going to see a Chetty Osman miss and, ball, I think, like hit the top of the backboard. So they called it out of bounds. It's just really, really impressive what Mitch was able to do in space in this series as a rim protector in this series. And then we're going to come down here, and this is in the fourth quarter after everything had come down. And he closes it out with the thing that he has done best throughout the entirety of this series, and that is offensive rebound. Mitchell Robinson had 18 rebounds in this game, 11 of them on the offensive end. And this is still a game, as we've seen. This is a 10-minute lead or 10-point lead with 4 minutes left in this game. The Knicks need to run real solid offense here. And what you're going to see here is they come up, they set like a couple of ghost screen actions and quickly ends up just all of the screens and going all the way to the rim. And Mitchell Robinson is just going to fly. Jarrett Allen here is in like kind of a weird position where he is the backside defender that has to be responsible for blocking out here. And if you'll notice, Josh Hart is in the corner and he decides to peel off of Mitch and try to block out Josh Hart because he sees Josh crashing for the glass. And Josh Hart is a great rebounder. The problem is that he just misjudged. There was no way he was ever going to get to Josh Hart. This has to be a block out on Mitchell Robinson from Jarrett Allen. Mitchell Robinson is the guy that's 7 foot tall. He goes to the corner and just completely vacates Mitchell Robinson. That is a poor decision from Jarrett Allen there again. Mitchell Robinson finishes. Again, I believe this is the next possession down the court. You're going to get 2 on the ball and a ball screen. Then RJ is going to drive. He's going to miss this little floater. And again, nobody gets a body on Mitchell Robinson. Nobody gets a body on Mitchell Robinson. And if you don't get a body on him, the ball is going right back up to the rim. And look, again, this is one where because they blitzed the ball, they were at a deficit in terms of bodies to try and get someone on Mitchell Robinson. So they didn't really have a chance. But that's the problem with putting 2 on the ball in this circumstance. And here you're just going to see a missed shot. And this is just him beasting on the backboard here against, I believe, a smaller defender. You really need Evan Mobley to probably come across and get this rebound, but instead Mitchell Robinson tips it out to himself. What was most impressive to you about Mitchell Robinson in this series, Mark?
I mean, everything you hit on. I thought, kind of like I mentioned earlier a little bit, the way that he was aggressive and active in finding pockets to be available and to impact the defense. Like I thought he was incredibly good and he ran the floor really well. Like there was, I think it was in game 4, he got hit with a full court lob. Like excuse me, just small things like that, like all of the dirty work things that I think he's needed most to be the most successful kind of all came together. Not that, I mean, he's done a lot of that all year. I think this has been easily his best year as a player.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that really was embodied by what he did in the series.
So they're going to play the Knicks, or the Knicks are going to play the Heat now moving forward. Do you have any thoughts on that series?
I'm kind of feeling Knicks conference finals, to be honest. Like sneakily, like even with when I was expecting the Bucks to be the team that was going to be in the second round, I really like the way that this Knicks team can match up with the Bucks. Could match up with the Bucks, I should say. Like Jalen Brunson had some awesome games against their drop coverage this year. Mitch Robb, honestly, not that he's used as a Giannis stopper or anything, but like in terms of what he brings alongside some of their length and the way that they were able to match up with him and play against Brook as well. Like I thought that was going to be a really interesting series, and I had a lot of confidence in the Knicks to make it one that goes into deep waters. But now, maybe I end up just being completely freaking wrong, and Jimmy Butler just continues to be better than Michael Jordan ever wishes he could be. But I would feel really confident about the Knicks in this series. A lot's going to depend on Julius, to be fair. Like I want to say that, like what's gone under the radar is Julius Randle, re-aggravating his ankle. He struggled this series, but a lot of it has been the ankle pretty clearly. So I wonder what that looks like. But we didn't even say this too. Like I said this on the Daily Ding tonight. The last 5 games is probably the best 5-game stretch RJ Barrett's had all year.
Yeah.
So
yep,
that's massive.
What have you liked about RJ during this time?
It's the best he's looked as a passer and decision maker. Like he just has kind of let the game come to him. He hasn't forced things as much. Like, no, he's not making crazy, high field passes or anything, but he's been good with lobs. I thought he had some good connections with Mitch, some good stuff with Obi. There were a lot of moments throughout the season where he was not actively like looking for that or seeing it. And it felt like even if there were times where he wasn't fully able to just take advantage of guards, I think part of that was Darius and Donovan are both like pretty good at getting up into guys. But overall, like I just felt like he did a really good job. Obviously, he's not Jimmy, but playing in that same way of being able to be used in multiple ways, and kind of letting the game come to him. And that's not what I was able to say about him for most of this year, which is what makes this year so interesting too. Because like as good as the Knicks have been, a lot of it's been in spite of RJ. Like I think he cleaned up his play quite a bit over the last month of the season, but to get to where it's at now. Has been completely different. And I thought the defense was really solid throughout the series.
Yes.
I don't think it was amazing, but I thought it was like B plus. And that is all I want from RJ is to be somebody who is going to like, because, him doing all of that unlocks so much of what brings the Knicks to that higher level.
Particularly on the ball. I thought the moments where he was switched on to Darius Garland, particularly when they switched Jalen off onto the 3-man, that was a disaster for the Cavs. They tended to switch RJ onto Garland, and I thought those were the moments where the Knicks had the most success guarding Darius Garland in this series. Shout out to RJ Barrett. I think he deserves an immense amount of credit. He was really bad in the first 2 games of the series as well, I thought. And for him to bounce back, he got a lot of shit from a lot of people nationally. And he really bounced back. And I thought this is definitely the best 3-game stretch of his career for sure. I don't even think there's a question in my mind there. The last point here that I do want to bring up is just, to finish on the Mitchell Robinson side. The Cavs were a bottom 5 defensive rebounding team in the last, I believe, like third of the season since the All-Star break. And you can't be that when you're playing Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. You really just cannot be that. I think the Knicks were third maybe in offensive rebounding over the course of this post All-Star break run. And that honestly, like really felt like the series in a nutshell. Like they won this series with extra possessions. They won this series by Mitchell Robinson dominating these guys in a real substantial way. Right.
Well, yeah, like to be completely fair to the Knicks, like their offense was still pretty average we're being
Yeah,
honest. A lot of this was just being able to absolutely wipe them on the boards and with second chance points. Like that was killer and an absolutely massive decider in this. And I will be interested to see what the Knicks offense looks like, moving forward. Because I mean, the offense has been really good, so I'm not too worried about it. Like
yep.
I'm pretty confident in quickly having a much better offensive series. But yeah, that was it's an adventure to look at what the final rebounding totals were.
It was pretty wild. It was very, very wild. Okay, let's go to the West. Let's start with the Lakers because I don't think that this conversation is going to be that long. The Lakers lose 99 to 116 to the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies have to now go out to Los Angeles to try and win a game 6 in order to stay alive in the series. The Lakers are up now 3-2. To me, this was a patented Los Angeles Lakers letdown spot. They have done it all year. They have played down to their competition, or when they don't have to be motivated, it's felt like they aren't motivated in some way. I feel bad saying this. I thought this was the worst game I've seen LeBron play ever.
It was
in
very
the playoffs.
Bad. It was really bad. He was pretty listless defensively and
Yeah.
offensively. I mean, some of the it's like I get uncomfortable is the wrong way to put it, but like I don't love talking about decision making in a negative way sometimes just because what the connotation can be like and how it comes off. But like this is the first season where I've really felt like his decision making is questionable. And I think that's really come along with his struggles to get to the rim at will. Like
Yeah.
their defense just really made it difficult for him to get to the rim or into the paint at all tonight. And even in game 4, he I mean he turned it on late, but so much of that early game was him getting into these step back jumpers and just contested looks from outside after getting bumped off his spot on attempted drives. And it is just kind of jarring to watch.
It feels like he doesn't have the first step anymore.
No, not at all.
He has it when he's like a freight train in transition and can like get ahead of steam. But the like first
there
step
isn't blow by speed right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is jarring. I agree with you.
Yeah, because even when you go back to that last game in that fourth quarter, it's all the put my shoulder down and get through strong kind of drives to draw 2. It's not the I'm blowing by you and forcing help. So it's been very different to watch.
It's going to be really, really interesting to see just how they adjust here, because the offense I thought was quite poor in this game. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard because like there have been moments where Jared Vanderbilt has been useful in this series, but it's felt like to me when he's out on the court, the offense really goes to hell in a lot of ways. And you can, tonight, I think he ended up with like a pretty decent offensive rating in terms of like what it looked like when he was out on the court. But I don't know. It felt like a lot of that was like based off of just 3-point, variance at the end of the day. Right. It was, this was tricky. This was a tricky game. And then the bench unit for the Lakers that has been so good throughout the course of this series, particularly Rui Hachimura, he goes 4 for 8, but it just felt like anybody else, whenever they took the starters off the court, they were getting nothing from any of those guys.
Yeah. Schroeder was just kind of a non-factor tonight. It was a really weird game from him. Just kind of out there. And to be fair too, like I thought John Conchar gave them some solid minutes tonight. Like he played 10 minutes, but really like it was kind of wild. I mean, seeing LeBron get jammed up by John Conchar is a sight to behold. Was a really good Luke Kennard game. Like box score wasn't crazy or anything, but I thought he brought good stuff. Obviously, Tyus brings what he brings. But yeah, I thought to me, this was a lot more about, like the Grizz played a good game, but a lot of this was just kind of ineptitude from the Lakers in this game.
So I'm glad you brought up Luke Kennard because I think that Kennard is actually really important. He had a shoulder injury in this game, and it's going to be really, really important for him to be healthy because their best moments in this series by far have come with Luke Kennard on the court. And that goes back even to the regular season as well. And this is a number that I pulled from play-by-play stats, pbpstats.com. In the regular season, when Desmond Bane and Luke Kennard played together, do you know what the Grizzlies' offensive rating was, Mark?
That's a great question. I have no idea.
129.6. They're scoring 1.3 points per possession. They had a plus 22 net rating in those moments. In the playoffs so far, coming into tonight, so not even including tonight where they were unbelievable, coming into tonight, do you know what their net rating was when Luke Kennard and Desmond Bane were on the court together?
Plus 19?
Yeah, they're plus 18 net rating. Their offensive rating is plus 122.7 is their offensive rating. That is insane.
That is crazy.
And in game 5, so tonight, they were a plus 27 when Desmond Bane and Luke Kennard played together in this game. They need to be playing those two together for 30 minutes a night, in my opinion. And I know the defensive deficiencies that you have with Luke Kennard and Ja Morant on the court together. It's pretty easy to hunt mismatches for LeBron, particularly when you do that. I don't care. When this trio is on the court together, I don't think the Lakers can guard them. That is the adjustment that I think the Grizzlies need to make. Maybe you continue to bring Kennard off the bench. You bring him in after 6 minutes just to get matchups that you want. You try to avoid LeBron as much as you humanly possibly can. But I think you have to play these guys a lot together. And a big part of it is that Desmond Bane, in my opinion, has been the best player in the series over the course of the last 2 games. He went for 36 in game 4. Or I'm sorry, went for 36 in game 4, 33 in game 5 tonight. And now we're going to go into clips with Desmond Bane because I think that it is very fun to go through just, again, how Desmond Bane has drastically improved on one hand in terms of his ability to see the court, make high-level passing reads, and be able to play out of ball screens, but also stay tried and true to what has made him such a tremendous player to fit next to Ja Morant in terms of his off-ball movement and floor spacing. So here, we're going to see this play where Xavier Tillman has the ball, and this is the first play of the game. They're just putting Austin Reeves through the ringer with some screen-to-screener action underneath the basket here, and Reeves gets caught up on the Jaren Jackson screen, and there's just no chance for him to recover after that. This is just a beautiful out-of-bounds play at about the 7:30 mark here, where you're going to see, again, really fun screen-the-screener action where Desmond Bane is the screener, and then you're going to see I believe it's Xavier Tillman come through, and believing that they have switched that action, he's going to screen Anthony Davis there. But because there was so much congestion in the paint at that point, I believe Jaren Jackson, what actually happens there is because Jaren Jackson is flipping off here toward the paint, Austin has to kind of bump him and tag him real quick just to make sure that that pass is not available for Ja Morant to make on the lob up over Jared Vanderbilt. And by the time Austin Reeves has to recover out to Desmond Bane, it's just way too hard for him to actually close out under control. Desmond Bane gets the easy floater up over Anthony Davis. Now we're going to come out. We're going to see the end of the first quarter here. Luke Kennard, and this is just an example of Luke Kennard's floor spacing and shooting. This is an end of the quarter situation. They're very clearly trying to guard him with 2, thinking that he might try and get to that right step back. He's going to try and, maybe pound dribble with the right, step back to the right and knock down that shot that he's very good at. But he drives, they have to ride him all the way to the rim, and he eventually sees the kick out to the corner. They get it up to Desmond Bane. That's a 38-point first quarter for the Memphis Grizzlies, and it was kind of off to the races at that point. Offensively, now we're going to get to see some of the ways that Desmond Bane has really improved on the ball over the course of his career. Jaren Jackson here, he's going to get just a little bit of a rub screen right there on Austin Reeves, get that little bit. And what this is some beautiful Spain action, right? This is going to be Tyus Jones. You're going to notice he's going to come up. He's going to catch Wenyen Gabriel on the back end. And I believe, who is that supposed to be guarding him? I think that is actually supposed to be Austin Reeves coming out and guarding him just a little bit late at that point. And he misses it. and that's an easy 3-pointer. What did you like about Desmond Bane coming out? Did you like Desmond Bane coming out of TCU?
That was the year before I started doing draft work, so I did
Oh,
not see Des at TCU. But I mean, what I've liked about him now is just the way that he blends strength and power, and his ability to really kind of just read the floor on a stop. Like, I think part of what's so impressive about that, like, obviously, I think part of it's, he knows the play, he knows where the guy's going to be, but he's really good as a quick scanner. He puts awesome velocity on the ball, which is an underrated thing. Like, I think that's something as I've like kind of gotten the nuance of passing a little bit more. Like, ball placement and how quickly you get it there matters a ton, especially when you're trying to put it in somebody's shooter pocket. Like, Tyus isn't a quick release guy. Like, he's somebody who definitely needs more of a clean shot to really get it off.
yep.
So when you look at what those passes can look like and how quickly he gets it there, I think that's been huge. And the way that, like, I've loved how he sets up his screens now too. I don't know if it was like that at TCU, but
hold that thought very quickly, because you brought up velocity on passes. And I have the perfect clip for you here, Mark, because you're going to see here, Desmond's going to come up. He's going to go to this corner here, or he's going to go to this wing here, and he's going to spot Luke Kennard coming down the opposite wing. This is a difficult pass. You're going to see by the time he recognizes it, Rui understands where he's going with this thing. Any less velocity on this ball, this is not getting through, and this is a pick six going out the other way. Look at how much velocity Desmond Bane puts on this ball in order to get it cross court. Zips it right across to Luke Kennard. I'm so glad you brought up the velocity on the passes, because I think that is such a smart point about how he's improved as a passer and playmaker.
Yeah, because going off that too, like, there are a lot of guys who can make skip passes, but it's like, are you making a skip pass that is that the defense can recover to, or is it a skip pass that's killing the defense? And I think he's at the point now where, like, he makes skip passes that absolutely kill the defense, because you have to, like, it's not a, like, there, because I think one of the things that gets really misconstrued, like, when you see a guy pass to somebody who's wide open, you're like, oh, wow, that was a nice pass. Like, okay, well, it's how is the defense reacting to it? How do they have to react to it? How close are they to it? There's a lot more that goes into it. So yeah, it's been really fun to watch with him.
So in the way he sets up screens, I think goes both on the ball and off the ball. We kind of saw the way he's setting up screens off the ball. They really love using that screen, the screener action for him, because he's a really good screener, because he's so strong and physical. But it goes toward his on-ball screening, or ability to come off screens as well. Just look at him kind of take that little string out dribble, one little pound dribble down, and then he crosses back over and lets Jaren flip the screen for him. And he sets up Troy Brown perfectly there and gets that little mid-range jumper. It's just an ideal little move to be able to do that. Here we've got that zip pass cross corner over to Luke Kennard again. But here we're going to see him just get this little dribble handoff. And again, this is just the way he's improved as a passer. He's going to see right here. Oh, I rewound a little bit too much, but we're going to see here. He's going to come up. He's going to get the handoff. He's going to see the way that the seas have parted a little bit once he draws the second man over for Xavier Tillman. That is, who is that supposed to be tagging at the back? I believe that's Malik Beasley here, who misses. No, who is that? That might be Rui. No, it's Troy Brown. Sorry. I figured once I rolled through them all, I'd be able to get there. It was Troy Brown that was supposed to be the low man there, that's tagging Xavier Tillman. He's a little bit late, and Desmond Bane sees it, and he's able to make that beautiful, beautiful little dump off pass. And here, you're just going to see, this is some beautiful action here. Again, this is screen the screener action all the way for Desmond Bane. So he's going to come up, and it looks like it's supposed to be a play for Dylan Brooks to come around, but instead Dylan curls and sets a screen here onto Austin Reeves. They catch Austin with the second screen, and Desmond Bane again, just wide open. He's going to can that three every single time. It's the way he sets up screens. You're 100% Mark, right? Right, Mark. He's really, really good at it now. And that's what makes him such a threat. And it's what's made him so dangerous throughout the course of this series. Austin Reeves had a bear of a time dealing with him in game 4, and he really did not deal with him well in game 5. I think Austin Reeves is probably their best option in terms of chasing him around screens Austin is really smart. He's really sharp in terms of the way he sees the court and sees the way that guys are coming up to screen him. And he's a very good help defender, as you saw with that little tag that he had to bump Jaren Jackson on the inbounds play. But Dez is just really good. Dez is just really, really good at this now. So where we're at.
Yeah, something I'd honestly be interested to see them try. Like maybe they try and especially with I mean part of it, with them playing Kennard more, I do think that makes it tougher. But in the minutes without Kennard, I'd be interested to see them try and play a little bit more aggressively against him. Like I actually think Des handles two to the ball pretty well, but more of okay, well, what if we play closer to the level of the screen? Put somebody out there who maybe is a little bit smaller that we trust to get over top. Like I think Schroeder's really good at that. Obviously it's tough because then it's like, okay, well, easy for Schroeder then get bodied if they find other ways to do it. But I do think, something that I will be interested to see if they try and tinker with a little bit more.
Okay. This goes back to LA in game 6. Who do you think wins this game?
It's back in LA. That's a good question. I think if we didn't even talk about Ja that much. I think if Ja looks as comfortable as he did tonight and unbothered as he did tonight, I think I'm taking Memphis. I still just like with the way that Des is clicking now. I feel kind of good about the Grizzlies. I know that sounds wild to say in a series that where they went down 3-1, but I think I do feel pretty good about the Grizzlies after tonight.
I don't mind that take. I'm actually a little bit worried about the Lakers now at this point. I picked the Lakers coming into the series. I thought the Lakers would beat them. The reason I'm worried about the Lakers is actually LeBron. And I never thought that I would get there. I never thought I would say that, but we haven't really seen LeBron get above second gear at this point in the series. And that's something I've mentioned previously on the show, talking about this series. And tonight was a low point, I thought, from LeBron in this series. Like he was not very good. It was pretty staggering, I thought, to watch him. This was the least effective LeBron game I've seen in a while. I thought he was great, obviously, in game 4, had the 2020 game, really carried the way for the Lakers in what was a tight game. That's the LeBron that the Lakers need every night. It can't be, 15, 7 and 4 or whatever he had tonight. It can't be, kind of dropping some defensive assignments here and there. It really needs to be, high end LeBron at this point of his career being able to, bully his way into the rim and make high level kickouts and be an elite level rebounder. This is what the Lakers need now from LeBron.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Okay, so I get the impression you probably watched the Warriors Kings a little bit closer than I did. I still pulled some tape and grabbed some things that I want to talk about with the Warriors in terms of how I think they made that run in the third quarter that kind of felt like stretched the game away from the Kings a little bit.
Can I give you, before we dive in, can I give you my biggest thing for what I thought was the biggest impactor tonight?
Absolutely. That's why I'm queuing it up for you, baby. Let's do it.
Well, number one, Fox, obviously. Like I thought Fox he came out the gates extremely hot, had a really good fourth quarter to help draw them in, but you could tell like I think he had 6 or 7 turnovers tonight. Almost all of them came off driving. Like he was not comfortable getting downhill. And what was rough too is like the Kings really did find a lot of better offense and had a lot more balance to their offense outside of just needing Fox to score 30 for them. But I think the lack of easy buckets, generated on drives towards the paint from him was really felt tonight. But the biggest reason why I felt the Warriors won, Kevon Looney was awesome. Like he was really damn good on the glass. That's an undersell. He was incredibly good on the glass. Was really good as a trigger man and just in what he brought overall. But Draymond's aggression as a scorer, that was like the most aggressive I've ever seen him come out as a scorer, at least since the first like 2 or 3 years of the Warriors run. Like he came out, there was no hesitation on like, oh, I'm going to look to DHO this. It was like, no, I'm catching the ball and I'm going. And I thought like you could tell Sabonis was very much so in, trying not to foul, Like, I thought it was a pretty clear game plan from them. To saying soft is the wrong way to put it, but like very much like, okay, just stay there with your hands up. Don't try and reach. Be careful. And I think that's the right way to play it, because I mean, you don't expect Draymond to come out like this, but I mean, he was legitimately a very impactful and important scorer for them tonight. Like, what do you have? 18, 20? And he was, I mean, that was the biggest deciding factor for me, was how he played and was able to just kind of open things up from there. Because both he and Looney, with adding that in, like this was the most that the Kings got back cut all series tonight. And I think a lot of that was because they were having to put that much more pressure on the triggermen.
I'm so glad that you brought up the back cutting. You brought up the passing and playmaking of the bigs, because that is actually what we're going to dive into. But I do want to focus on Draymond scoring, because I think you're 100% right. The aggression as a driver is something we have not seen from Draymond in a few years now. And he's come out in both of these games, both game 4 and game 5, and been very aggressive since that suspension. He's been very he wants to take it to Domantas Sabonis, it feels like, frankly, every single time that he's on the court. And Draymond can be an emotional player, but I don't tend to think of him as someone that offensively lets that, kind of game within the game get into him, right? Like, he's not someone that like will jack up terrible shots. Like, frankly, tonight, I thought there were a couple times where Drew Holiday got baited into playing the one-on-one game with Jimmy Butler against the just incredible run that Butler is on. And I thought it hurt the Milwaukee Bucks. In this game against the Kings, it feels like Domantas Sabonis, like, he is out to make a point right now, Draymond Green. And I'm fascinated. I will be watching the Draymond Green show tonight to see what he says and to see what he thinks about that aggression and why he is that aggressive right now, what he sees in the defense that makes him that aggressive. We might have to wait until after game 6 or game 7 to hear from that exactly. But yeah, really, really impressive stuff from Draymond Green, I thought. But there are also two things that I think I want to talk about that feed into the bigs, because look, we can talk about the fact that Klay Thompson had 25 points and made some just absolutely absurd threes tonight. We can talk about Stephen Curry having 31 and 8. Again, he was absolutely tremendous in this game, I thought. But the difference in this series to me is the bigs. I think the Warriors have been better in terms of being a solid defensive unit on the interior, with Kevon Looney being able to body up on these Domantas Sabonis post-up attempts, and in help on the interior with guys like Andrew Wiggins coming over as a weak side rim protector, with Draymond Green obviously being able to play that role as well, having that length on the interior. The reason the Kings are kind of continuing to be really high level in this series, I think, is the 3-point shooting. And they just didn't get that tonight. De'Aaron Fox makes 3 of 3 from 3 in the first quarter. Then he goes 0 of 7 the rest of the way. They shoot 29.4% from 3 in this game. Up until then, it felt like the threes were why the Kings were having a ton of success in the games where they'd had success. I thought they had some reasonable success tonight against the Warriors defense, but the interior defense, the rebounding, the ability to end possessions is huge. The second part is the passing. I think the bigs being able to make passes and bring Sabonis away from the basket has been enormous. We don't think of Domantas Sabonis, obviously, as a very high level rim protector. He's not. We need to be real about that. But he's the biggest body the Kings got, unless they're playing Alex Len. And they play 4 wings, or they play 2 wings at the 3 and the 4. Like, Harrison Barnes is not a great rim protector on the weak side. Keegan Murray is not a great rim protector on the weak side. So by bringing Sabonis away, I'm glad you brought up the back cuttings. We're about to get into it. I thought the Warriors just absolutely demolished the Kings tonight on back cuts and on short rolls as well. I thought short rolls were a significant problem for the Kings in this game too. We're going to see here, this is going to be Stephen Curry. He is going to eventually, I believe, or no, this is going to be, what is this? This is, oh no, I grabbed the wrong clip, Mark Schindler. This is a nightmare. Mark, talk for a minute about the Warriors passing as I try and figure out what in the hell I missed here.
Uh Shoot, I am totally drawing a blank right here. No, I thought like this was the most it felt like the Warriors were able to get downhill in general tonight. Like, still not a very good Jordan Poole game, if we're being honest, but um, he had 6 assists tonight, and a lot of that was coming off of his ability to attack downhill. And I think part of that was opened up by exactly like you're talking about what the bigs brought, and how they were able to open things up. But yeah, I thought this was a phenomenal passing game from the Warriors.
Okay, so now we're up. We've got it.
Cool.
This is going to be just an entry pass from Steph into Draymond. He's going to come up after having set a screen for Wiggins in order to try and confuse the Kings on the back end a little bit. And he's going to take the handoff from Dre. They're going to put 2 on the ball. Look here. They're just going to put 2 on the ball. Sabonis is going to come up very high, and this is just an easy pocket pass for Draymond Green and Stephen Curry, who have been doing this for a decade now, right? And here you're going to see Draymond Green being very aggressive. He forces the step up from, I believe that might be Davion Mitchell, because, again, that initial screening action in the paint from Stephen Curry that you're going to see here forces the switch from Mitchell onto Wiggins here. So they're going to force the switch. Fox goes on to Curry, get the short roll, and this is just an easy lob for Draymond Green up to Andrew Wiggins. Again, you're going to come up here. You're going to see Stephen Curry. He is going to throw the ball to Draymond Green. This is just tried and true, easy bucket for the Golden State Warriors over the years. Draymond Green trailer. They go under the screen this time. It feels like they're trying to trap on the wings, and in the middle of the court, they're dropping. Why you would ever drop against Stephen Curry is beyond me, but they decided to drop here. Steph calls bank, and it goes in. This play here, I believe, is going to be Looney this time. This is going to be Poole coming down to the wing. They decide to ice it like it's a ball screen, even though it's not a ball screen. Little pocket pass into Looney. Forces the step up from the help defender. This is an easy baseline cut again from Wiggins for the easy bucket. Steph comes up here, takes the screen from Draymond, and then we're going to see the cutters again. I have no idea why they decided to try and trap Kevon Looney on this play. This is a very bizarre decision from Kevin Huerter here. Oh no, he just like completely tried to overplay. I believe is that Gary Payton or Jordan Poole? I believe it's Jordan Poole.
Jordan Poole.
Tries to overplay Jordan Poole not being able to come up and get the handoff, and Jordan Poole just recognizes it immediately and gets the easy backdoor cut. Okay, here we go. We've got Stephen Curry again. This is going to be an easy screen from Draymond. They decide to put 2 on the ball in the middle of the court this time. Easy pass to Draymond, and he's just reading Harrison Barnes the whole way. He's reading that low man on the opposite corner. He sees Harrison Barnes sink in. This is just the easiest pass in the world for Draymond Green out to Andrew Wiggins. Easy kick out. Now we're going to start getting into the third quarter cutters that really made this offense sing during that quarter. Here, passes the ball over to Draymond. You're going to see kind of some dummy action for Stephen Curry, and then eventually Gary Payton just cuts backdoor. This is just the easiest cut. And because, again, Harrison Barnes, not a great rim protector, easy finish around Harrison Barnes. Okay. Again, entry pass in to Draymond Green, kind of dribbles, waits for Dante DiVincenzo to shake his man, cut backdoor, hits the easy backdoor cut. Again, this is going to be, I believe, Looney on a delayed short roll here. Steph draws 2 with Len, hits Looney, and then Looney, just the easy kick out. Again, I believe that might be Dre that time for the easy 3. And then here, just top of the key, Draymond Green, just waiting for things to develop a little bit, gets the ball to Kevon Looney. Kevon, this is a phenomenal screen. You're about to see him completely light up Davion Mitchell here. Beautiful dribble handoff here to Klay Thompson and just demolishes Davion there on the screen. This was, I said, I thought game 3 was a legacy game for Kevon Looney in a Warriors uniform. Given the spot that they were in, I stand by that. He was just as good tonight. he was just as good tonight. Shout out to Kevon Looney. Ends up with 22 points, 7 assists, only 4 points, but Kevon Looney I thought was absolutely terrific in this game.
Totally agree. That was a really fun game. I wish that game 6 was tomorrow already, because I'm really interested to see what the Warriors not Warriors, what the Kings come back with and how they counter.
Yep.
But yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal set of games tonight. Do you have anything else? Do you think the Warriors or Kings win that game?
Game 6, I'm gonna say Kings just because I want it to go 7. I'm ready to see it.
I think the Dubs close it out, unfortunately. I'd love to see 7. I'd love to see 7 in this series. I think the Dubs close it out, though, unfortunately. That Chase Center crowd is going to be absolutely rocking. I thought the Kings, outside of Keegan Murray in game 4, I thought their role players were not quite as good in the road games as they've been in home. And that gives me some real concern against this Warriors team. Anything else that you want to go through, Mark? We just rolled through a tremendous slate of basketball. That is the last time we're going to get 4 games in a night, I believe, this year.
And that is okay with me, to be completely honest. No, man, I think that's all I got right now. Sorry. Oh shit, I've been compressing that for a while. No, I think that's all I got on my end.
I don't know if I want to make you talk Yellowjackets right now. It's probably the right time to do it because we're at the midseason break right now. There's nothing until May 5th, I believe. But I have some concerns on where Yellowjackets is headed, Mark.
I'm interested to see. I think, we were texting about this earlier. I really want to. I've enjoyed the first half, but I feel like we have even more questions and a lot less answers than I was hoping for. I feel like I wanted some loose ends tied together or burnt off, early on here, and it's going places, but it feels like it's just going more towards chaos for chaos sake rather than, somewhere with a direction. And I think that, based on how last season went and what their overall plan seems to be, I think we'll be fine. But yeah, I agree. It is going all over the place right now.
So, spoilers, obviously. I think Mark did a good job of avoiding those in what he was saying. I have some concerns just because it feels like it's very disjointed right now.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they separated all of the main characters for reasons kind of beyond my comprehension to start. And now they're just kind of bringing them all together. But the Thaisa stuff was completely separated from the Lottie / Natalie stuff. And then, Christina Ricci was off doing her thing with Elijah Wood. And as much as I have loved watching Elijah Wood get to interact with Christina Ricci, because those scenes are absolute gold. Those two are just perfect together in these scenes. I need it to come together a little bit more. Part of what was so good about the first season was all of the characters coming back together after being apart for so long, and then to separate them, I think was kind of a mistake to start the season. And the biggest culprit there, I think, is Shauna. I have no idea what they're doing with Shauna's character right now and why they're trying to separate her storyline seems so separated from everything else. You can see a world where in the next episode, all of Thaisa, Van, Lottie, Natalie, and Misty are all in that same compound location.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what is happening with Shauna right now.
We need to learn a fucking lot about Adam. That whole storyline just feels kind of muted. And
yeah,
I think there's been absolutely no payoff with it. There's not really a lot of understanding connection other than he had that really weird back tattoo that very much seems like an homage to the Yellowjackets that Shauna never saw. But that's kind of all we're left hanging with. And I feel like the way that they've written everything, there's no way that they're just dicking around with that. So I'm expecting that we get something, but I need it soon because yes, it's a lot.
It kind of reminds me right now of like the second season of Homeland a little bit,
I never saw Homeland.
where, yeah, so in the second season of Homeland, there was kind of a storyline with the daughter getting into like a car accident. And it feels like right now they're focusing on like the stuff with Callie, the daughter for Shauna. And I think all of that stuff is just like a mess and is so incredibly boring and like dull to me. I have no desire to watch Callie. Like I don't watch the show for Callie. I watch the show for like Christina Ricci being an absolute fucking mad woman, like just a crazy person in like the funniest ways. You're not a Misty person though, are you?
I think the character is fun to watch, but I do not fucking like her. No.
I think Misty is probably my favorite character on that
She
show.
destroyed the black box. Like how can
Yeah,
I
she's a chaos agent, Mark.
I would not you could not pay me to be in a room with Misty if she was a real person.
I think
I'm
that's
really
probably
bad.
true.
I'm like really bad at hiding if I don't like someone. Like and I
Oh,
just know I could not be in I could not be in a room with Misty. It would not go well for me.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's true. And then you mentioned to me that they're diving into all the supernatural stuff. How do you feel about that?
I like that honestly, and I appreciate that they don't like they kind of leave it ambiguous still. Um like we have all the reasoning
Yeah.
that they set up very well in season 1. Uh and like I just want to I think again it's at the stage where like I just want to keep getting more understanding of it.
Yeah.
Like I want to like cuz especially too I do think the biggest thing that we've gotten in the start of season 2 was the figuring out what Nat was right about.
Yeah.
And it's like I want more of that cuz getting the vision or not vision the flashback of Nat, overdosing and having the vision of the antler queen in the burning plane, like I want more of that. I need more understanding of that because that's what I think is most compelling and interesting.
Well, and from like a plot perspective too, part of what made it difficult to tell if it was actual supernatural stuff or not was it felt like the visions were kind of contained to Thaisa and Lottie, both
Oh.
of whom we know have uh, mental health concerns in, see visions, and, Thaisa has sleeping problems, and I forget what Lottie's exact diagnosis is in terms of what.
So what's fun about that, and I was telling my I tried to sell my parents on this show. Nope.
No go, no
Yeah,
go in the
no.
Schindler
But
household.
but the way that I tried to explain it, part of what I really like about it, and I think what makes the show so effective for me as like a thriller and a horror show, is that they give you just enough that you're just always kind of questioning it and wondering and you want to know more about. Like they never let us know what's up with Lottie. Like we never
Yeah,
see what the pills are. They made it very intentionally to show us that, hey, she's taking these during episode 1. Hey, she has a very limited amount in episode 2. And that's all we ever got. And
yeah,
like I think I love the way that they did that. Like that's the kind of stuff I want. I want to get I want to be able to kind of have that like sinking feeling all the time and like think about it and like, well, shit, we
yeah.
don't really know. Like that's what makes it effective. Um, so yeah, and I think that's what's going to be interesting to see how they continue to do that across, the next couple seasons, and the rest of this season too.
I think the showrunners are very good at parceling out information
Yeah,
uh, at like good times, like the right times to figure it out. So yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I just kind of need it to go. I need it to go somewhere where the main characters are all back together, because I think that's what makes the show like
I
truly
so I
special.
think did you watch? Do you watch the
I don't.
week for it? Oh, okay. All of
Yeah.
them are going to be
Okay.
together. Yeah.
Good. Great. Love
Yeah.
it. That's what we're going for. Um, any other strong takes that you have to get off your chest before we're out of here, Mark?
Uh, I will say, because I was watching this in my hotel room in Virginia, because I caught up on the rest of the second season. So I spent my entire weekend uh, in and out of the Boo Williams Sports Complex. So when I wasn't there, I was watching the NBA and then watching, catching all the rest of the way up with Yellowjackets. And I was eating my dinner when Shauna Shipman ate Jackie's ear, and
Beautiful.
that was a like this show
Wild
rocks.
ride.
That was
Yeah.
like because I knew that I knew it was headed towards that. As soon as she put the ear in her pocket, I was like, oh no, like I have a bad feeling about this, and they close on that, and I was like, God fucking damn it, because
I will say one thing I do think is missing from this season as well, and why I think the first couple episodes, when they flash back to like the crash site, I think that this show misses Jackie a little bit.
I like
Actually,
Jackie a lot. It's funny because a lot of people don't like Jackie's character. I thought, to me, Jackie was arguably the most compelling character in the first season.
in the flashbacks, I agree. I think that like overall, I would probably go with like Shauna and Misty, but I thought that in the flashbacks like portion, it was definitely Jackie, like by far. I thought like
Yeah.
her integration into going from being a leader to being like somebody that had to take orders and had to like listen to others was really interesting. And then obviously her interactions with Shauna, knowing that there's like a ticking time bomb in Shauna's, womb, essentially, really created dramatic tension in like a substantial way. And those first couple episodes with Jackie this season, I thought were quite strong in terms of developing Shauna's character. But since we have not seen Jackie, it has become a bit more difficult, I think, for Shauna to really find anything to do in the flashback scenes that is interesting outside of like being pregnant at this point.
And I feel like that's figuratively and literally coming to a head in the next episode. So that will
Certainly seems that way.
make an adjustment. But yeah, man, I regardless, I've enjoyed the hell out of it. The acting's just so good. Like, even if the
So
story's
good.
been a little bit, like, where are we going? I've enjoyed the acting a ton. All of the young cast members are really good. Like, I think Sophie and Elise is awesome. She, like, I mean, obviously plays Shauna, was in Book Thief. She's really good. Ella Purnell, who played Jackie's really, really good. I mean, like, I don't have any complaints about any of them. Like, and then all the adult players, like, I mean, Melanie Linsky's been awesome.
Yep.
I think as Jeff's character has grown into the show, I actually have really appreciated him because he's somebody who I feel like that's actually like a really hard role to play. I feel like, and make it
Incredibly
like,
hard.
and make it believable or like worth having, because he's supposed to be kind of a dumbass but lovable, but also like does some smart things. He's like definitely a tier below Shauna, because Shauna is just so frustrating because she's clearly smart, but she also is just incredibly impulsive and probably thinks she's smarter than she is. So it's like it's a really weird blend. But no, there's a lot of good stuff going on in the show.
And honestly, I think a big part of what the show is struggling with a little bit in the first half of the season for me is, so they made some choices near the end of the first season after having been around all of the actors where I felt like, for instance, they've been pretty open about the fact that like Van was supposed to die like in the first season, the showrunners. And because they loved Liv Houston so much, just portraying Van, they didn't want to lose that actor. Basically, they thought that they really brought something to the table as an actor, and I feel like because of that, the Thaisa storyline in this season has been leading toward Van, and it hasn't gotten there quick enough I guess, like maybe like I think they had to make some adjustments basically to try and get Thaisa back to Van. And because of that happening, it then resulted in a stilted, difficult, start to the season for Thaisa because they wanted to keep Van around for potential future valuable moments in the scene or in the show. And then, Jeff is kind of a perfect example of this as well. I think they just really like that character and they really like that actor. So they've started using him more in the second season. And I wonder if that is kind of to the detriment of Shauna's character having to be around Jeff, because the only way you can have Jeff in the show is if he's around Shauna. I don't know. I think that like falling in love a little bit with some of the supporting actors has led to early on in this season having to like reset the table a little bit, and maybe it kind of dragging again, like, Lottie, like introducing Simone Kessel, right? Like I really have enjoyed Simone Kessel's performance. I have read that that's a little bit polarizing as well as a thing. I think she's been really, really good. And I also think that they're focusing on her substantially at the expense of like more screen time for Natalie, more screen time for Misty, Thaisa, Shauna, who are like the core four that we have established relationships with and really care about.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. And it's going to be interesting to see where they go for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess like when you do a 5-season show, which I guess is what they're planning, they have to like expand the world a little bit more to be able to, fill it out and, world build for 5 years to make it a show worth watching. Okay, Mark, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people about your Patreon. Tell the people about the Daily Ding. Tell the people about all of the many podcasts, playback, etc. that you do.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at MG_Schindler. That's where I keep all my stuff. Subscribe to my Patreon. I'm just about to 100 patrons, so that
Let's
would be
go.
Just about there. It would be sick. I will have something big either dropping. I'm hoping to get it out tomorrow. I have a lot going on tomorrow, so we'll see. But there is not like a big comprehensive thing on the transfer portal in women's college basketball, and the transfer portal in women's college basketball has arguably been crazier and more star-studded than men's college basketball. So
yep.
I'm about 3,000 words into that and should have that out. I went through and got access to the portal and actually like got all of the players that I think are most interesting out of it. And I'm doing a bigger write-up on that just so that can be out there somewhere. But I need to get it out before a bunch of them commit. So we'll see how that goes.
Yes, you do.
I have a lot of stuff going on. They've got, I didn't mean that like conceitedly, I just mean do. Listen to They've Got Now, podcast in all things women's basketball. Should have some good stuff coming in the next week or so where I'm traveling less. Also over at Tag the Roll for playback and talking draft and scouting. Mainly follow me on Twitter. That's the best place to get everything collectively.
Yeah, I'm going to have Milner come on with you at some point and just like yell at me about draft prospects. And just like both of you come at me and just like complain to me about guys. I just finished CD Sissoko's draft guide profile earlier today. That's an exciting one. I know that Mark, you generally are a fan of most of the G League guys in this class, right?
Yeah. Sort of. Like I really like Leonard and I mean obviously love Scoot. I think I'm I'm like 25 or 35 on CD. I think he's fine. I'm not overly in love with him. I think that's just a fair enough estimation.
Yeah, I have him like toward the top end of that. I have him like 20 to 25, something like that. I'm really interested in the defensive ability, really interested in the strength, the intersection of strength and kind of ability to like work through screening actions and like work through like help side rim protections for a wing is really interesting to me. He actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Jimmy Butler defensively. Is none of that offensively right now, but defensively, particularly, I see a little bit of that long term for him because of that strength and because of that just like overall IQ that he brings to the table. offensively, it's an adventure, and I am quite concerned, I would say. But he's very young, and he understands the game. He has good IQ, really understands how to pass, how to play out of pick and roll. I just don't know how many ball screens he's actually going to get, and I feel like his passing in the run of play is not quite as effective. So, yeah, CD's an interesting one. CD's a very interesting prospect that I'm intrigued by, but don't love, I guess I would say.
Yeah, no, that's a fair way.
That'll be a good one. Okay. This has been the Game Theory Podcast. Please remember, rate, review, subscribe, do everything you can to support the show. We will be back. Maybe not tomorrow. There's only one game. It's not impossible that the Hawks do something bonkers that makes me record. But if they don't, I will not be back to record after that. I guess that other than that, I will be recording, I'm sure, on Friday night because there are good games. I will probably record Saturday because that's game 1 of Nuggets Suns. And then other than that, we will be kind of rolling, like I said, 4 to 5 times a week. That's the goal during the playoffs. Schindler will come on, Spins will come on. I'll do some solo podcasts. We'll break down tape. That's been the really fun part of the playoffs, getting to really dive deep into some of these guys, getting to dive deep into some of the skill sets that they've brought. So go subscribe to the Game Theory YouTube channel, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Facini. That is the best place for you to go watch the show and get the full experience of us diving into this tape. Please go subscribe to all of Mark's various things. Go subscribe to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. And subscribe to this show on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get good podcasts that are free. Until next time, though, we will talk soon.